This episode was originally recorded in German and transformed into this voiceover version with the help of artificial intelligence and some manual input. We're not quite where we'd like to be in terms of quality yet. However, we firmly believe that AI is constantly improving, and we're getting better at using this tool to produce great results in the future. So, if you speak German, it's definitely worth checking out the original version of this episode on the German Flight Club podcast.
Welcome to Flight Club, a podcast where we want to dive into specific aspects of flight levels, share experiences, and introduce you to the flight levels experts on a more personal level.
Welcome to the Flight Club of the Flight Levels Academy, where you can meet people who are passionate about flight levels and engage in discussions on topics related to flight levels. I am Klaus Leopold, and my guest for today's show is Alisa Ströbele. Hi, Alisa.
Hello, Klaus.
Thank you for taking the time to chat with me. Earlier, we were talking about what we want to discuss. You mentioned that you are working in the SAFE context. Our listeners are interested in SAFE. Let us talk about how flight levels and SAFE align with each other. Is it similar to fire and water, or is it comparable to a good burger and a good burger sauce? This is our plan for today, but before we jump into the topic, dear Alisa, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about what you actually do all day long.
Well, perhaps similar to many of us, my day really doesn't seem that long to me. However, I have been working with the company Improve in Munich since the year 2017. It is an agile organizational development consulting, and I am working as an organizational transformation coach. Additionally, I serve as a Kanban trainer and a flight levels guide.
Great! And I suppose you were not born with the wish to become an agile coach, am I right? So what did you study or learn? What is your background that has led you to the position you are in right now?
Indeed, I was born as a professional pianist. Just kidding. However, I had a professional career as a pianist during my childhood and youth, where I actually played the piano. And then, I think, when I was about 19, I realized that if I continue like this, I have to make money with it. And at a certain juncture, I no longer found that amusing and decided to switch the keyboard. I then pursued computer science, quite pragmatically, without fully realizing the extent of what I was getting myself into. However, fortunately, it has proven to be an incredibly exciting and perfectly suitable experience for me. That is the reason why my approach to coaching is through the utilization of informatics. I studied computer science and then worked as a computer scientist and software developer for my first 10 years in the profession, both in a traditional environment and in an agile team, where I also discovered for myself that it is really great to achieve something bigger with other people and to experience how good it can be when the collaboration really works together. I have found that working in a team can lead to amazing results and a sense of fulfillment that is hard to replicate when working alone. Basically, that is how I came around the topic of teamwork. Moving away from long-term plans in order to experiment rapidly, learn together, and take the next step. That's exactly what we need to do. This is essentially the first half of my professional career.
Nice. At least I can envision that. That is quite a lengthy distance from playing the piano. That is something entirely different. Something like this always fascinates me when you have done something completely different. Particularly, playing the piano is quite an artistic pursuit. Naturally, it is also a skillful craft. One really must be talented to accomplish that. Cool. And that signifies that you were also functioning as a software developer, and then you somewhat outgrew that and somehow made your way into this agile circle. What were the initial factors or circumstances that led you to start your journey in that particular direction? The classic way of some form of Scrum, or what were your initial interactions or experiences with the agile world?
My initial contact was actually with Scrum. I was fortunate to be in an organization where a significant emphasis was placed on the process of learning. There has been an immense amount of freedom to position oneself in a broad and unrestricted manner and to develop in all possible directions, which corresponds very well with my personality. This means that as a software developer, I was also able to try out UX topics. I actually stood with our UX teachers at Marienplatz with prototypes and approached individuals for feedback. I have had this experience as well. Nevertheless, I have also obtained my initial experiences in the field of moderation and teamwork, providing support while I was working as a developer, and discovered that it is extremely enjoyable for me to contribute to the creation of a shared understanding, making complex topics more tangible and easier to comprehend. And so I ultimately made the decision after spending a decade working in the field of software development for 10 years. It is time for a new chapter. I initially developed my career towards becoming a Scrum Master, then progressed to the role of Agile Coach, and now I am incredibly happy with the position that I am in.
Very good. This indicates that you have already been introduced to the entire concept of agility as a developer and have already had first-hand experience of what it entails to work in Scrum teams in an agile manner.
Absolutely, and that takes me even further naturally, because when I engage in conversations with teams and organizations, I am able to empathize very well with what individuals, teams, and leaders experience, and it helps a lot in establishing a strong connection with reality and gaining valuable insights into their challenges and perspectives.
I am also a fan of incorporating the lived experience in some way and not just knowing it from the perspective of being a coach and wondering what could be done to make the world better, but instead actually being in the situation and doing it yourself. At some point, you were in the Flight Levels Coach program. What was it that attracted you to the topic of flight levels and the Flight Levels Coach program? How did this topic come about and capture your interest?
The Flight Levels Coach program is composed of two main aspects, namely Flight Level World and coaching, which are integral to its structure and effectiveness. My initial point of entry was into the realm of coaching. I successfully completed training in systemic coaching in 2017 and subsequently pursued further training in 2019, focusing on the application of positive psychology in coaching. That means I already came into this program with a solid coaching foundation. Then the question is, why flight levels? I have also been following the development of this idea, this model, thought model, approach since the year 2019, and it has been fascinating. I actually attended your flight level architecture training in Düsseldorf in 2019, and since then, I have been very interested in it because I have also been dealing with the topic of Kanban since around 2018, and so this other side that we all got to know there has become a significant part of my professional journey. And all of that came together perfectly in my head, every single piece of it, without any issues. And as I delved further and further into the subjects surrounding scaling, it became exceedingly clear and evident to me that in order to enhance my effectiveness as a transformation coach, I need to acquire a deeper understanding of pragmatic scaling deployments. And that is the reason why I devoted myself entirely to the topic of flight levels and made it my sole focus. That is the time where we also met during in the coaching program. Because I was particularly interested in the topics surrounding change processes, which are a significant part of the coaching program, as well as topics surrounding flight-level architecture, system topology, and how we can create individualized solutions for organizations that fit their specific needs and requirements afterwards. Those were the most memorable highlights of my experience.
Very nice. That implies you already had a coaching education, specifically systemic coaching, if I recall correctly, and yet you chose to pursue the Flight Levels Coach certification. That is also a question that I sometimes ask myself. I am already a coach by profession. I already have a coaching education. Why should I do a flight level coaching training now? Can you say in 1 or 2 sentences what was different for you in the training? Or were you thinking that it adds additional value or an extra benefit to the table?
Certainly, the different coaching trainings concentrate on various aspects. And that is truly amazing. The training on systemic coaching had as its primary topic, oh, wait, I am out of focus. Oops, I would like to see my own image. Wait a sec, oops.
There you are again.
Klaus, please ask your question again.
Indeed, the question was, right, you mentioned that you had previously undergone coaching training before your participation in the Flight Levels Coach program. I frequently receive the question, well, I am already a coach, I have coach training, why should I now participate in the Flight Levels Coach program again? What was the delta for you, or what made you say, okay, that still brought additional value for you?
It has brought value to me, and based on my personal experience, each coaching training session has a specific focus area, and that is definitely a positive aspect. The focus of my systemic coaching training is on effectively dealing with complexity, navigating interpersonal dynamics, understanding the coaching process, utilizing coaching tools, and establishing a strong foundation for my career in the field of coaching. The flight level coaching program had great added value for me as it delved into change processes, flight levels, and system design. We explored how to develop a flight level architecture that aligns with the organization and brings added value. The program provided in-depth knowledge and practical strategies for navigating these areas, offering a comprehensive understanding of flight level systems and their impact on organizational success. That signifies there is a remarkably evident emphasis on flight level that is situated behind it. And a substantial portion, undoubtedly, was occupied by the valuable exchange of ideas and experiences with other skilled practitioners in the respective field of expertise. And it was extremely, extremely valuable to learn from the experiences of others, to observe what their journey is. Individuals who already have experience with flight levels meet up there. That would be the distinction for me.
This is rather an important point. The coaching training is not something you just heard from Flight Levels. Furthermore, we genuinely assume that the experience is already available. That is the factor that contributes to its significance and is what makes it special, I believe. At Flight Levels, I also had the opportunity to experience the interested, pragmatic scaling and so on of agility. At this very moment, you are working within the SAFE context. I now often receive the question, what is the actual difference between SAFE and flight levels? In essence, it is fundamentally the same. I am curious to know how you would choose to respond to this particular question.
Actually, at first glance maybe, when you see the visualization of 3 flight levels and compare it to the SAFE big picture, here 3 levels, here 3 levels. What is the difference? This is an interesting start to this discussion. I also experience that repeatedly, time and time again. Indeed, I perceive that as 2 completely separate and distinct entities. SAFe is a complete and extensive collection of tools and patterns specifically designed with the aim of supporting and enabling lean and agile organizations in a comprehensive manner. Also brings about a significant amount of structural change, new roles, and new responsibilities to the table. From a different angle, flight levels is a perspective on the organization of a company. I am fond of this idea. Every organization already possesses the flight levels within its existing structure. We are only supposed to discover that. We need search to find the right ones. And that's what we use, with a strong focus on process organization. It is about value streams. It is about enabling value to flow between the different levels of slides and within each level of the presentation. And that's a very, very significant distinction for me personally. It is not a prescriptive framework, but rather a mindset and perspective on an organization, which makes it truly unique and valuable in my opinion.
I find that really exciting. I have never heard it that before, but I can really identify with it. A perspective on the organization, a type of viewpoint or outlook on the organization. Exactly. In fact, every organization has the 3 flight levels. I also agree with that. The question is whether we can see them and if they are well connected. SAFe knows how to do it. So there is a concrete idea of what needs to be done, how the organization needs to be restructured in order to achieve this lean agile approach to working. And flight levels is more of a model that helps us develop the tools we need and use them in such a way that we can achieve our goals. But now it is a very special case for you as well, because if I understand correctly, you utilize flight levels in a SAFe context. Now you could say, that is even weirder. Now there is already SAFe. What are you doing with flight levels now?
Precisely, and although it may initially sound weird, it actually makes perfect sense to me and proves to be incredibly helpful in practice. I employ the subsequent approach. I do not arrive and proclaim, "Gentlemen, I have achieved it, now let us engage in something entirely different." However, at this moment, I am simply utilizing it as a means to assist me in analyzing things, in my capacity as a coach and consultant, as someone who is entering a new context, in order to swiftly gain my bearings in that particular environment. That signifies, I employ this perspective to see the work systems that exist in general. This is a complex and multifaceted environment. If an organization implements SAFe, then we have at least several teams, if not several team of teams constructs, that desire to achieve something collectively. It is already a highly intricate and complex undertaking. Make an effort to determine the content that flows through these work systems, the type of work that is involved, and the manner in which it flows through the systems. What does the appearance of interactions between teams, leaders, and individuals look like? How does the learning process happen and unfold in this particular context and environment? That means, I utilize the core activities of flight levels. I make use of 3 levels as a perspective to obtain an overview for myself and gain a better understanding of the overall situation. And then I commence by utilizing tiny impulses to further develop and enhance the organization's current state and progress towards its goals and objectives. Considering the subjects they currently find challenging, which typically elicits a favorable response from them due to its relatability and relevance.
All right, that indicates there was previously a SAFe implementation and you are currently joining an ongoing SAFe implementation that is not functioning optimally at the moment. Is this the moment when you start to get involved with flight levels?
Indeed, what I have experienced a few times is the following situation. An organization has started a safe implementation, formed teams, conducted trainings, defined roles, and has already been on this path for maybe half a year or a year. A lot of money has been invested, a lot of energy and passion is flowing into it.
Und ja, vielleicht schon so ein halbes Jahr, ein Jahr lang. Und es wurde viel Geld investiert, viel Energie und Herzblut fließt da rein. Und leider
Sadly, the anticipated achievements or enhancements have not yet become visible or apparent as expected. This is, in reality, the exact point in time when I am commonly and consistently called upon for my expertise and relied on to offer assistance and guidance. And indeed, with the task, let's take a look together at where it is going wrong and not working. What are some different strategies we can employ to ensure its success?
Is it possible to create a new flight levels claim now? Flight levels fixes your damaged trains.
Maybe there is support for that. That is how I would put it positively.
Can you give a highly specific example? So, if you now join such an organization, what do you see, for example? What works and what do you do then in response? Which tool do you take out of the flight levels toolbox and then screw around with, or how can one imagine that?
Let's adhere to this example. A substantial amount of work has already been done. A large number of individuals have been activated, and the situation does not seem to be quite right. Additionally, there is a certain level of skepticism that is spreading, and this is even more detrimental. Individuals tend to become impatient, suspicious, and frustrated in such situations. My goal is to inspire confidence and instill a sense of assurance in others. It is acceptable that it is not currently flying yet. Additionally, it is acceptable that something does not work yet at this point in time. I arrive with the perspective that what I initiated, maybe the claim was that it needs to be able to fly after 1 year and then be completed. But I also personally experience it myself. It is extremely complex and involves a large number of people. It's okay that it's moving slowly. It is a journey. It is a development. Let us discover a way to proceed together and continue our journey towards the next milestone. And it allows space for a bit of calmness, a break. So I attempt to develop a shared language. Firstly, inquire extensively, ask me questions, observe. I have already outlined that. So truly comprehend the context and subsequently using what I have comprehended to mirror it. To initially verify whether what I have apprehended corresponds accurately to the reality of the situation at hand. However, as we are aware, this process of reflection leads to a higher level of clarity and understanding among individuals within these complex and intricate environments. What I have noticed in this particular instance is that there is a significant emphasis placed on the topic of planning. It is clear that careful planning is a key focus in this specific case. We collaborate using PI planning, where all team members come together, align their backlogs, and make their best efforts in the initial coordination of implementation, prioritizing what needs to be completed before what, in order to achieve collective success. The process is elaborate and it requires a significant amount of energy. Then, it is also crucial to prepare for PI planning in order to ensure the success and effective execution of such an event. Eventually, my program board concludes with dependencies arising between the teams involved in the project. Then everyone says, "Done." However, it is only after that moment that the series actually commences. The train is departing. That is where I come in, and I observe that the coordination of the implementation of this plan is still being treated as a second priority. This is a matter of concern that needs to be addressed promptly.
Wird noch mit zweiter Priorität behandelt, sag mal so.
The organization hasn't had the chance to handle it yet. And I also say, it's fine, now it's your turn to take care of the situation. Now, let's please have a comprehensive discussion about the concept of flow. And I come equipped with advanced tooling from flight levels, I believe.
Okay. Inquire about two things concisely. Therefore, upon hearing that, all right, you are attempting to reflect once more, in order to grasp the current context. So if I now examine the tool landscape of the flight levels, capturing context, as I mentioned, I am not an expert in SAFe at all, but I can envision that there might be a work systems topology. Is that something you start with? So with work systems topology, it essentially focuses on the work systems we have. Of course, a work system can be 1, 2, or 3. But it can also be a team. It can be a release train. What work systems are there and how are they connected? Would it be possible, for example, with a work systems topology?
Yes, definitely. Incredibly helpful is to generating a map to stay on top of everything and keep a comprehensive overview. Because, of course, even in such large constructs, there are elements like shared services, teams that provide services to others, and if they are not considered as such, they already encounter a problem that needs to be addressed.
Haben die schon ein Problem. Ja?
This is an incredibly beneficial tool that provides great assistance, as well. To capture concepts on a large scale, I also appreciate the fact that you use the term map to describe it.
On the bottom line, what does it really do? I regret to inform you that it is not a map due to the fact that the position holds significance in a map, if my understanding is correct. Munich and Vienna, if I exchange the two on a map, then the map is no longer correct. However, if I currently relocate work system A from the left side to the right side, it remains accurate. The map is already a beautiful picture. This is what our map comparison, our organization appears as. This is also the manner in which the connections are established. And then you also mentioned the implementation of the plan. This implies that a plan is created in a PI planning process. All the representatives of the cities on our map gather together, bring their backlogs, and attempt to find a unified solution out of the entirety. And now, we are faced with the task of implementing it into action. Now I am uncertain if I can still adhere to the map metaphor, considering its durability. When implementing, something like flight routes most likely comes into play. Where do we have to go? Where do we have to send the work on our map, so that ultimately we reach the goal and hopefully generate value for the customer? Now we have to use the maps. We must not strain them any further, but is the topic of flight route something that you find interesting when you say that it is exciting during the implementation of the plan?
Yes, and the commencement of it occurs even earlier than anticipated. With the commonly shared understanding of what actually still lies and remains present in the surrounding area, including its immediate vicinity and the nearby region. What are we dealing with? This topic slide items, typical work. Can you give more details or examples to help clarify the specific context? I perceive it as a tremendous sense of relief for the participants when I start my involvement and ensure that we establish a common understanding among all parties involved. And then a team, I don't know, calls a feature, what other teams call a user story, yes, different slide items, and then they try to find a common language, but they don't speak it. I have encountered such a trivial matter multiple times. When individuals reach a consensus on the nature of things, and subsequently express, now it is aesthetically pleasing. Currently, there are not 20,000 distinct things, but rather 4 in the vicinity. And that already reduces the complexity a lot and this mental overload. So that implies that this just by itself is a substantial help. And if we continue discussing how the work is transferred to the teams, from one team to another team, there may also be a moment of realization in a different context. It was very pleasant for me to observe that this conversation also resulted in the teams realizing, oh God, we receive these requests through 6 different channels, and we do not want that to happen due to the inefficiencies and complications it creates in our workflow. We desire to have one. And then they actually visualized it with the stakeholders, the routes, how it is presently running and how it would actually be simpler and more convenient for all parties involved. And then they utilized this route model, route language, in order to develop a shared language with stakeholders and synchronize these input channels. I have found creating a common language on my own to be extremely helpful thus far, specifically in terms of slide levels and vocabulary.
Yes, it is always astonishing. It never fails to astonish me when you observe organizations that somehow collaborate and how straightforward the issue is, as you mentioned earlier. One talks about feature, the other talks about user story. Essentially, they mean the same thing. And the opposite is frequently true as well. Both discuss epic, but for one, it is inexplicably the yearly undertaking. So there used to be projects before, now we just call them epics. And in some other area, they say to the epic, well, that's just what we're going to bring to the market in a few weeks. Also completely distinct images in the mind, so to speak, of what is supposed to be transpiring or taking place. I always find myself pondering how that can possibly work in real life, contemplating the ways to collaborate, as it is quite a challenging task to accomplish. Simple thing, but still. However, if I now take a brief look back at our previous conversation, I have realized that the tools from the Flight Levels framework that you use for SAFE include a work systems topology, which focuses on finding a common map. Then harmonize the entirety of the topic related to flight item types, so to speak. Flight routes also occur in some way or another. We are strong in flight level systems architecture. These are in fact precisely the ingredients we have in a flight level systems architecture workshop, the tools that are contained within. It is quite thrilling. At Flightable Systems Architecture, the subject of agile interactions was also included. Who is speaking to whom about what? Is this also something, or has it already been delivered by SAFE, where you say there is no need to reconsider it?
It is definitely worth considering if we are unsatisfied with the way things are progressing. And this is extremely relevant and applicable in all areas, including the process of dealing with agreements and the organization of meetings and discussions. And indeed, SAFE pretends to dictate which people should talk to whom about particular subjects. If it's effective, I'd advise against altering it. All is well and there's no need for any changes. However, in the event that it does not work as effectively as desired, it is highly beneficial to re-evaluate and question ourselves once again regarding our objectives and what we hope to accomplish with this secure event. If that is our intended outcome, who should be involved in the process of achieving it? When it comes to clarifying technical dependencies among each other, even during such a product increment, whether the product owners, scrum masters, or team coaches are the best contacts for that. Or does it make more sense to establish a connection between the techies and ensure that the flow of information is smoother, enhancing overall productivity and collaboration within the organization? And then it's good. That means I definitely look at what I do from this perspective, including the topic of agile interactions. Are you agile in terms of being situationally relevant, adapting quickly, and doing what is necessary, efficient, and effective in order to meet the demands of the situation? Does everything have to occur in a single conversation? Can we substitute something with interfaces and define it once and that is it again? That is an alternative viewpoint that provides a fresh and unique outlook on the subject matter at hand.
That resonates with me a great deal when you say, all right, if it works, do not touch it. So if that works, then you don't have to come with force and say, okay, but flight level says this is how it should be done, now we have to reconstruct it from scratch. I think this is one of the assertions that flight levels always begin with. We do not want to dismantle anything that is functioning. So if you are happy with your interactions, as suggested in the SAFe, and not just happy is one thing, if they work, then that's the other thing. If this is effective, why should we make any modifications at this point in time? Let's begin by examining the present circumstances. You have already stated that right at the start. Observing, where are we standing, and based on that, how can we create meaningful changes in the situations we are facing in a way that has a real impact? All right. At this juncture, we essentially have the understanding that agile interactions might also have a role to play in this context. And because you say that it flows, what one often does is model it over the flight routes, the agile interactions, where it is similar to flight web system architecture. For me, I have taken that you make use of a multitude of tools that are contained within the flight level system architecture in order to rectify it if the SAFe functionality does not work as intended or expected. That means for you, it is like a mechanical language. It does not work in a complex world, but flight level is like the toolbox that you use to enhance and optimize a SAFe implementation, making it more efficient and effective in practice. Ultimately, it attains the desired outcome that it is meant to attain. Is that the concise summary of the situation at hand? Can we put it that way?
Yes, I am making an effort to utilize tools or mindsets from the flight levels world to support the further development of SAFe implementations.
Auf die Weiterentwicklungsreise mitzunehmen, sag mal so. Ja.
Sehr schön, fit zu machen.
And to utilize it in the locations where individuals currently are, where they are experiencing pain at this very moment. But also to consider what is already functioning well. It is always something that operates effectively. I am trying to initiate my efforts there and actively promote what is currently working.
Absolutely. That is also a main theme that is always in my head. If everything were shit in these companies now, the market would have already sorted it out. That means, let's enhance our strengths, examine what is bullshit bingo, explore the potential for improvement, determine what we can still accomplish, and focus on making what should be better, better. We do not always need to do a full reset in every situation.
And I hinted at it. One major topic I often encounter is the shift from solely focusing on planning to finding a balance by incorporating a focus on deliberate, value-adding work.
Das auszubalancieren mit Fokus auf Flow, auf wertstiftende Fluss der Arbeit.
In addition, I also make use of tools like Kanban and flight levels to a great extent when it comes to viewing and managing our work as a flow.
Arbeit als Fluss oder unsere Arbeit als Fluss zu betrachten und
This is promptly reflected in the subject matter. What are we truly visualizing in reality? Similar words are used everywhere, and the question is, what do we want to see? If we have a focus on planning, maybe we will see a more static picture. and visualize the urban image and then work with it. And when we direct our attention towards the flow of work, that is a dynamic and ever-changing image. It is reflected in how we visualize the work. What we see is what we manage. This is an extremely thrilling transition from observing to starting the flow. It's also a journey and a development. A fundamental change in perspective. And I find that to be incredibly important, and I invest a great deal of energy in helping others to master this profound paradigm shift in thinking and approach.
Yes, extremely beautiful. Yes, the subject of flow. Thank you for mentioning that once more. Undoubtedly, this is also an enormous factor that we strongly aim to establish in the domain of flight levels land. We desire to establish enterprise flow. Therefore, we aim to achieve flow throughout the entire organization, enabling it to soar. Yes, you have the option to invest 1 or 2 minutes prior to reaching your goal. Very good. Dear Alisa, thank you so much for providing us with an understanding of your professional world, the ways in which you utilize flight levels tools to progress and enhance your work in the field of SAFe. That is truly amazing. Thank you so much. Now another note, if any of you currently say, okay, that is actually exactly what is also a topic of interest for me. We have a SAFe implementation, but it does not fly as it should, and you could add a little bit of flight levels. Alisa is the woman who has the ability to do it. That implies that I will put the hyperlink to her profile in the show notes. Simply click on it and definitely get in touch with Alisa. She will be able to help you. Yes, that is the conclusion for today at our Flight Club. Thank you very much, dear Alisa, for taking the time to be here with me. I am hopeful that we were able to create some value, just like the way flight levels can coexist harmoniously with SAFe framework. It is not only about what I inquired about initially, such as fire and ice, but rather, it is more similar to
Burger and the sauce. Burger and the sauce, that was the picture.
That fits perfectly and looks amazing.
That sounds really fantastic, actually.
Good, cool. Thank you so much, dear Alisa. And a heartfelt goodbye to you.
See you soon. Goodbye.
Subscribe now to be updated for the next episode. Did this podcast remind you of anybody? Share the link with that person that you think should also join the Flight Club. And join our free community to have access to a lot of free content as well as direct contact with all the coaches and members. Visit our web to create your account and more information. Go to flightlevels.io.